Ultimate Fighting Championship, Bellator MMA, and many other organizations have an enclosure in the shape of an octagon where warriors live, eat, and breathe the sport known as mixed martial arts, otherwise known as MMA. Behind the scenes, judges sit in a dimly lit area, cage side, front and center of the action. The backstory of one of those judges, Cardo Urso, includes an impressive military career, holds over 5 martial art black belts, and is known as a subject matter expert in military combatives. Join me on Hazet Hapa Profiles, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant Cardo Urso. Atlantic City, New Jersey, known as Resort City, and was also an inspiration to the famous board game Monopoly. Located off the Atlantic coast in South Jersey, sits a city known for its casinos, beaches, and boardwalk. Near all the glitz and glamour, the AC nightlife, sits a small gym called the Habu Pit, where owner Cardo Urso now instructs and mentors MMA hobbyists and professional fighters. Cardo has lived an inspiring life that has been a contributor of shaping today's warrior combative mindset. In 1978, Atlantic City took a gamble by opening its very first casino, named Resorts. That very same year, a young New Yorker named Cardo V. Urso took a gamble in life by enlisting into the United States Marine Corps. After spending his young adult life studying various martial arts, Cardo decided to take his workmanship, motivation, and talents to the next level as a United States Marine. There he trained in Tang So Do and was a member of the boxing team. In 1983, Cardo transferred to Okinawa, Japan, and was able to train in Okinawan karate and kobudo. A few years later, Cardo was reassigned to the state of Illinois, where he began training Hapkido and Matsukatsu Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. In 1992, Cardo found himself back in Camp Lejeune as the battalion operations chief for the 3rd Battalion, 10th Marines. Soon after, Cardo became a close combatives instructor, training in linear infighting neural override engagement systems, also known as LINE. In 1997, Cardo was designated as the lead subject matter expert for the Marine Corps Close Combatives program, as he helped to develop and implement the program Corps-wide. In 1999, he helped restructure the existing Marine Corps Close Combative program into the Marine Corps Martial Arts program, also known as MCMAP. Retiring in 2002, Master Gunnery Sergeant went to work as a subject matter expert for a law enforcement agency in defensive tactics. He has 35 years of martial arts training and currently holds black belts in Okinawan karate, white crane, judo, jiu-jitsu, and sambo, and is a level 3 instructor in the Militich fighting system. Cardo was an inspector for the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board until he became a judge. As a judge, he has scored fights for promotions such as UFC, IFL, Elite XC, Ring of Combat, Cage Fury, M1, Bellator, and Strikeforce. He's worked in England, Las Vegas, Iraq, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. I had the opportunity to conduct a workout with Cardo in South Jersey using the ancient Hindu device called the steel mace bell. While visiting Cardo, I had the opportunity to sit with him and ask him a few questions about his background, MMA, and judging at the professional level.
What are we doing today? Not enough.
Sure. In 1997, we did a course content review on our close combat program. We were assembled 10 subject matter experts, civilians, Marines, former Marines, World War II vets, and we brought them all to Quantico, and we reviewed our old close combat program, which was a system called LINE, Linear Infighting Neural Override Engagement. And one of the things that we found was that line always led to death. And our commandant of the Marine Corps wanted us to go through what he called the 3-block war. First block was handing out MREs to refugees. There wasn't enough food. They started getting upset. 3-round burst to the chest at that point wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted to be able to control them. Second block was rioting. People would be rioting, and we'd have to go and get a higher level of control over them. And then the final block was all-out combat, where close combat actually fit very well. These 10 subject matter experts were guys like Bill Hayes, another guy by the name of George Nobles, George Bristol, Hunter Armstrong, Jack Holben, myself, Ron Don Vito, and guy named Mr. Smith, who was a World War II vet. We sat down and reconfigured the close combat program into a new program that went from non-lethal to lethal force. And in 1999, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Jones, got together with us and asked about teaching martial arts. The first time the General asked about it, I went to the CO of the basic school and said, we're doing this, it's called close combat. That word never got back to the General. The second time he asked about it, we went and talked about it again. The third time he asked about it, we actually got his ear, and he came down to Quantico and we told him about our program. There was a gentleman who was going to bring Aikido dojos to every Marine Corps base, and in 1999, the Commandant of the Marine Corps allowed us to go head-to-head against this gentleman in a test of martial arts. So we took the existing close combat program and modified it and gave it belt rankings, and a character portion, which was the biggest portion of it all, was making an honorable warrior. We went out to Pendleton for 6 weeks, came back, and the Commandant gave us a nod. And at that point, we started developing the new Marine Corps martial arts program. First UFC was, if you talked to Jorge and Gracie, basically said it was an infomercial for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. If you look back there, basically it was wrestling against Kempo and Taekwondo against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai against Sumo and things like that. And they were coming out with one-dimensional martial arts. And that's not talking bad about anything. It's just kind of the way it was. You were either a striking art or a grappling art. And I think what the Gracies did was really, really pretty awesome, because they started combining both. They did enough striking to close the distance, get the takedown, establish position, and get into a submission. And that was the first few UFCs were like that. Over time, the sport has evolved for a lot of reasons. One, we don't go to the ground and work for 20 minutes anymore. We have time limits, and if you do hit the ground and you haven't started doing something in 30 seconds to a minute, we'll start you standing back up. So the sport evolved to where it is today. Yeah, I started training in Okinawan Karate Wichiryu back in 1971, and went from Vermont to New York in '73 and started training in another system of karate called Shukokai, which was a derivative of Shitoru. It was in 9th grade, and what we found is basically karate was really great for kicking, but it really wasn't that great for punching. So in 1974, I started boxing. That would make my hands a little bit better than my feet. Then we found that there was also a lack of grappling. So in 1974, I started wrestling and a little jiu-jitsu and judo for the groundwork. So MMA, or mixed martial arts, really started to happen for us, I guess, back in the 70s, but it didn't really get coined until the late or early 90s. Sure. The most memorable one, and they're all awesome. Let me just say that first, is my first UFC was UFC 101, and it was an awesome show, awesome to be part of that. But the most memorable one I can think of really would be the show I did for Fight for the Troops, which is in Iraq. And my daughter went over as a ring card girl, I went over as a judge, and we got the opportunity to judge amateur and pro events that night. They brought several pro fighters from the States over, and they had a lot of amateur fighters who were all soldiers, Marines, sailors. I think we even had an Air Force individual there. But watching those guys actually fight there in the desert, and knowing what they were doing to prepare for that, in that area. That's probably the most memorable thing that I can think of in my MMA judging career. And one of the most notable things that happened was after the fight, it was probably around 10 o'clock at night, everybody got back from the chow hall. We were sitting around our little cubicles, and there was a little commotion going down at the far end of the compound. I walked down, and there were a bunch of soldiers gearing up, getting ready to go back out. And my daughter was with me, and I asked the guys what they were doing, and they said, well, we're done, we fought, we're good, we're heading back out to our units. And I was like, you're going back out to your units? And they said, yeah, well, if they were in the United States, they'd be going to the after party. And I told her, I said, yeah, their after party is keeping us safe.